So good morning all of you. I hope you remember we met a few days ago also. Okay, good. So we are here to start with the science module. We will be starting with biology. So which all subjects are already going on for you? World history and geography. Okay, okay. So this will be the third section. We had some last minute adjustments to be done, so आवाज नहीं आ रही? मेरी आवाज तो मुझे लगता है बिना माइक के भी वहां तक आनी चाहिए, नहीं? फिर क्या दिक्कत है? इसमें संजना हमारे ऑनलाइन में आवाज सही आ रही है? आप एक बार चेक कर लो. So the way we are going to be doing science is going to be in 3 parts basically. So one part is going to be basic science, which will have physics, chemistry and biology portion, primarily oriented towards the prelims exam. So in prelims there is a portion of general science on which questions are asked. So that we are going to teach you. I will be taking biology. We will have around 6 classes in that, and you will have another faculty taking physics and chemistry. Then we have the portion of science and technology. That is going to be including all the topics which are there in the main syllabus. So topics like robotics, IT, supercomputers, nanotechnology, space, defense, all these topics, they will be dealt in a separate module, science and tech. And then of course you will be having current affairs classes. So we will be starting with the current affairs classes, the current affairs portion, somewhere in June, July for you. So that is the time. You can also start including that from classes, but as of now, I'm sure you have received some current affairs also. Have you received any current affairs magazines? Right? So despite the fact that you are new to this whole thing, newspaper and everything, but try building a base so that by the time you are formally put into those current affairs classes, you have some idea, because I'm sure you must have started reading the newspaper, at least most of you. Has that been done? Okay. Okay. It was a very feeble yes, but I'll take it. If you have not, then that's also one task which you are supposed to do. Newspaper reading is something which is supposed to be done, and that will give you some idea about what needs to be focused on and as you read more and more subjects. For making a choice as to, you know, which topics are supposed to be read, particularly for technical subjects like science. So you will have a science page which will come in your newspaper on some days, and you don't know how much you are supposed to focus on it or how much in depth you need to go into it. So for that, the most easiest and the simplest way to make that choice, which I can tell you, is to read the editorials. If you have to decide कि ये important है या नहीं, and this will hold true for all subjects. कि maybe you don't want to go reading technically into economics, so you can leave that economics page or you can leave that sports page, but if something comes in the editorial section, the editorial opinion, the 2 center pages, then you automatically know that this is something important, this is something which needs your attention, be it in any subject. So with science also, that's how you make the choice. If there is a topic relating to science, maybe some disease, some scientific development, maybe a Nobel Prize which has been given and it has been explained and discussed in the editorial section, so you know ki yes, this you cannot miss. And as you will start reading current affairs with the newspaper, then again that correlation will become stronger, because you have read 1 month's newspaper and when it comes in the magazine, you know कि अच्छा ये important tha. And in 2-3 months, your selection will also become automatic. कि yes, ये important है, ये important नहीं. Along with this, there are two more significant things which you are expected to do. You are just starting off. You will, I think, mostly be preparing for 2023. Anybody who's going to be writing in 22 also? Okay, okay. A few of you will write in 2022 also. Right. So, still even for that, you have some time as far as the prelims is concerned. I'm hoping you are also doing your optional side by side so that things are on scale. But yes, for 23 again, there is a lot of time. So you have the scope of doing things gradually, but doing them well. So make use of that opportunity of having started early. First thing you should be most well versed with is your syllabus. There is a very detailed, elaborate UPSC syllabus which itself takes months to be familiar with. So do that as a daily exercise every day. Try and end your day with reading the syllabus. Particularly the main syllabus, it is very extensive. So you will take some time to finally get the sense of what needs to be done there. Once you are familiar, once you have learnt the topics, yes, that's the word, you have to learn. You have to learn and remember the topics. That is what you should know. Ki mains mein, what topic is lying in which paper, paper 1, 2, 3, 4, that should be known to you, that you should remember. Again, whatever subject you are studying after that, you will be able to correlate. Ki acha, you know, food processing, there's an article on that or there's a topic being taught around that. So you know ki ha, food processing is a part of the syllabus which was mentioned in UPSC. Paper 3, General Studies Paper 3, we have food processing. So that passively you have to keep imbibing. Right? It is something I will call syllabus mapping. So you should know where what topic is placed in the syllabus. That's the first thing which you have to start doing. Second thing is the previous year's question papers. It gives you a very good idea of the level of the exam and also of the topics which need your attention. Of course, at this stage, because you are just starting off, you will not be able to solve those questions. Right? But just making yourself familiar ki acha, this is what they are asking. Maybe they are asking about genes. Maybe they are asking about chromosomes. Maybe they are asking about some particular type of plant again and again. So that pattern will register in your mind. Again, telling you what to focus more on. This is the essence of this exam. You have to read everything. There is nothing which anybody can tell you ki ye mat padho, ye nahi aa sakta. That doesn't happen. That's not the nature of this exam. The only thing is that you have a standardized amount of time and you have to make it a priority setting kind of thing. Yes, this needs more attention from me, this needs less attention from me. Ultimately, my time is limited, so I will put more effort in a place where I can get more marks. Right? That is, and that should be your understanding. So different subjects like science. So science in itself, or the topics which I will be taking on here in the class, you can study those topics for 5 years. Okay, it's very much possible. But you have to understand the nature of your exam so that you only focus yourself on aspects which are needed for the exam. And this is what I always say, that we are not here to study biology. Okay, we are just here to equip you in a way so that you can get some marks. That's the only agenda. So we will skip those details which we are not going to be using in the exam. We are going to focus more on areas which are asked in the exam so that you can strategically prepare. Right? Let me show you the syllabus first and then I'll show you the number of questions so that you can correlate a little better with what I am trying to tell you. So we are talking here about biology. So if we look at our syllabus, in the preliminary exam, we have General Studies paper 1, and in that there is the last point of the subject, which is General Science. Okay, so in this General Science, we say we have bio and we have physics and chemistry. So this physics and chemistry will be taught to you as a separate module. We will have 6 to 7 classes for covering bio, primarily catering to this prelims syllabus. So because we are dealing with it from the perspective of the prelims exam, we are only going to be approaching the MCQs. The practice questions which we give you every day, in that also you will have only self-test MCQs. So no assignments will be given for this portion. Other than just one assignment in the last class where we will be dealing with biotechnology. The mains exam, in that you have General Studies paper 3, and in that paper 3 there is this long line which says aspects of different technologies, and then they mention all the technologies in one line, nanotechnology, robotics, all of that, and out of that one topic, one point is biotechnology. Okay, so we will be dealing with some aspects of this biotechnology also here. So we'll have one assignment question, otherwise you will only have practice MCQs here. So this is also a good opportunity for you to cover any assignments which are missing, which you have not done, right? Anybody who has written all the assignments till now? Okay, a few of you, good. Please, chalo. So others should look around, maybe next time fall into that list. Or now you have the option, you're not getting new assignments, so maybe you can cover your pending ones, right? In terms of how this reflects in the exam, let's see the questions. So this is the number of questions that have been asked in biology in the last few years. So 2021, this recent October prelims, we had 5 questions, then 20 May 4, 19 5, 18 2, 17, 16, 15 1, and then 5 again in 2014. So roughly you can say the trend is 1 to 5, or because this is UPSC, we can always go for 0 also. So 0 is always a possibility. They can make any subject they feel like 0. One year they made geography into 1 question, so anything is possible. 0 to 5, that's but roughly the range which we are seeing in the last few years. Amongst this also, the major portion is being covered by health and genetics. So ideas of genetics and health, these are the zones where maximum questions have been asked. So if there are like 2 questions, one would be from health, one would be from genetics. This is the standardized setup. But of course, to understand these things or how it's working, we will need some background. Also, for your portion of current affairs, that's also where you will be needing some background, right? For those current affairs and their understanding, you will need to know some basics of the subject. Okay, only then you can understand. If there is a topic which is talking about antibodies and you don't know what is an antibody, then of course that becomes a problem. How do you answer a question? I'll give you an example of the kind of questions which they are asking and how you are supposed to go and approach them. So in 2020, there was this question. Pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. And the way UPSC asks questions, what it does it gives you multiple statements and asks you to choose from there. So like it will give you 3 statements and it will ask which of the following are correct. So 1 only, 2 only, 2 and 3, 1 and 3, like that options are there. in our classes also, with every lecture, we will be solving 1 or 2 questions. From previous years, I have picked up some questions which are related to the topics which we cover, so that again you have an idea of what kind of questions are asked, and of course we are going to learn how we are supposed to solve those questions. That is very important. The technique for solving MCQs, that has to be formally, the the tricks which we can have, that also we will be learning here in the class. So for this question, there was, of course, this is not the exact question, but I'm just giving you an idea. The first statement was about the disease. Second statement was about the concept of vaccines. The third one was about drug resistance. Okay, so when you sit in the exam, how are you supposed to get all these informations? So for the basic concepts, we in the class will talk about the disease patterns, we will talk about how vaccines work, we will talk about how drug resistance work. Right? This specific topic, this specific name might not be mentioned here, because this is the basic class, and we might not have that opportunity of going into current affairs of all aspects, right? So how do you get this information? I'll tell you the timeline of this vaccine. So in January 2020, WHO gave the approval for this vaccine. And then finally, in June 2020, this vaccine was rolled out. And the prelims exam that year was conducted in October 2020. So if there is somebody who is going through the current affairs diligently, okay, so all the factual information about this vaccine you will get from there, right? Because see, this has already been in news twice at both these times. Once when the WHO was talking about it, and then when it was rolled out. The special point of this is that this is an indigenously made vaccine. This vaccine has been made in India. Again, even after this, abhi February 2021, in the budget, there is a specific outlay for this vaccine. This is supposed to be given to children. So this vaccine is again in news. So a lot of these topics, they are in news in a reoccurring manner. We have to prepare the current affairs so that we have that idea. But the question which they will ask, that may or may not exactly be from what we did in the current affairs. Like maybe if you are reading in the budget that okay, these many crore rupees ka outlay has been given for rolling out this vaccine in the next 5 years or whatever is that plan, then that's not the fact they will actually be asking you in the exam. They will be correlating it with something else like drug resistance. Okay, this is an entirely different concept, but if you understand it, you should be able to correlate it. The questions in this subject now are becoming more and more conceptual. They are not something which you will find at one place and you feel ki okay, I have learnt it. You know, like there is a subject like political science. If you have to read about Article 13, then that statement and a sense of Article 13 remains like that, and you can deliver it in the exam. But here that's not going to happen. You will need some correlation. So understanding of topics is very, very important. That is how we are going to approach our classes also. So the way I like to deliver the classes is that we do not want it to be a very fact heavy class. So not a lot of dictations or terms or examples or any elaboration on that aspect I will be doing, because again, whatever you have to learn, whatever you have to cram, that you will do from the current affairs, right? So we have to be very pragmatic about the preparation. तो जो कुछ याद करना है, जो कुछ whatever the learning part or the facts part, that will come to you through the current affairs. Here my objective is to make you understand the concepts, right? I will try to make it as simple as possible. right? But again, it's your duty to make sure you've understood, and if you have not, you can always stop me and ask, right? I do not wish to use a lot of heavy technical terms, considering most of you do not have a background in biology after class 10th. So how many of you have studied biology after class 10th, if I can ask that? Okay, yeah, so that's good. Quite a few. Graduation in biology or biology, life science related subject? Okay, a few of you. All right. So again, now, see, we are all at different levels when it comes to this subject, not just this subject, for most subjects, but it's my duty to make sure that maximum number of you follow what I am teaching. So I would like to go a little slow in the beginning, and also keep it simple, non-technical as far as possible. At some places you have to use the terms, there's no alternative, but we'll try, right? Of course, you can tell me how you are going about it. For those of you who have maybe, you know, a specialization or any other advanced degree in biology, you might find it to be slow, or the fact कि अरे ये तो मैंने बचपन में पढ़ लिया था, क्या पढ़ा रहे हो आप? So that also happens. So in that case, just take it as a revision, right? This I cannot, you know, suck information out of your brain. I can just help reinforce whatever you already know. So take it like that. Take it as a revision. And the other thing is that in the starting, we will be having, I would like to dictate a few things so that you can write. After that, after a few classes where I feel that you are comfortable, we can take more of, thank you, running notes also. Or I would be using presentations, PPTs in all my classes. And also I like to write a lot on the board, so you can take help from that. But you have to remember this thing, that because we are not targeting the mains exam primarily, we're just focusing on prelims. So our approach in terms of taking notes and the classes also has to be in a similar background, right? They don't ask you system, if I like teach you the digestive system, so UPSC is not going to ask you to draw a label diagram of the digestive system and explain the functions of the stomach. So you're not in school anymore, that will not happen. So we will also not be doing it. We'll just broadly understand the things and then go on. Okay. The other thing is, the other challenge which you might feel is, for all of you who remember some things, say from school or anywhere where you have read, and because you are fresh aspirants with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of extra energy, so people sometimes start feeling कि यार कम पढ़ा है, इतने में तो नहीं हो पाएगा, मुझे IAS ऑफिसर बनना है, ऐसे कैसे, right? So initially this feeling is too much. After a few months, when you have 10 subjects to deal with, plus an optional, plus there are tests, then you feel कि ज़्यादा पढ़ा रहे. So that will also happen. But at this stage, particularly for this subject, like maybe, you know, you remember that when I was in school, I mean when you were in school, so the teacher took 5 days to teach me about the working of the heart, circulatory system, such an important chapter. पूरे unit में एक ही chapter आया था, इतना बड़ा chapter है वो. I'll probably teach you that in 15 minutes. वो भी ज़्यादा बोल रही हूँ, maximum, right? Then people start feeling deprived कि नहीं नहीं, ये तो इतना कम में नहीं चलेगा. So don't do that. Don't go into that trap. It's very easy to fall into that trap. What people start doing is they start searching things on the net or looking for sources. That just ends up wasting their time. क्योंकि आप एक चीज को search करने के लिए, you will not know, you will be so sucked into it that within the first 5-6 minutes of looking into a topic, you will have 400 tabs open in your browser. ठीक है, वो विकिपीडिया पे आते हैं तो all the blue words you will start clicking, नहीं ये भी मुझे पता होना चाहिए, ये भी मुझे पता होना चाहिए, ऐसा नहीं है, right? You are supposed to be generalists. You are supposed to have a general understanding. UPSC syllabus says that, specifically mentions that no specialization is needed. You should have the knowledge of a generally aware person, right? That is their orientation to ask the questions also. They'll ask questions which is something which someone might read in the newspaper, or someone who is generally curious. कि ठीक है, अब vaccine everybody is talking, I should know how vaccine is working, right? But again, if you feel कि आप clinical trials का data क्यों नहीं बता रहे हो मुझे, COVID shield की efficacy कितनी है, then that's no point. That's just wasting your own energy also, which you could put in getting more marks, right? And from here, as you are into this preparation, all this gyan is very important, because you have a very long journey to go, and you should not wear out, you should not feel ki this is something which is not possible. If you're planning to write the exam in 23, so the exam itself, prelims, is very far off. So make sure you are consistent, make sure you are doing things bit by bit every day, right? If you think, you don't start off with the first month and thinking कि मैं 15 घंटे पढ़ के बस अभी 6 महीने में ही IAS officer बन जाऊंगा. That doesn't happen. You have to go through the process, and you have to sustain yourself through the process. So be consistent. If you are able to make 3 hours, make sure you are making time for 3 hours every day. If you're making 6 hours, make sure you're doing that consistently, and only focusing your energy on what is going to come in the exam. Right? That is also ultimately the point of going for a coaching, because this is something which can make your preparation a little bit smart. Of course, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. I have no secret sources or some secret links with DRDO who are sending me some special information. That's not happening. I'm going to deliver you concepts which are already there, but the only thing is that I might help you align it in a smarter way and maybe save you a little bit more time so that you can revise and get more marks. Okay. Last thing, in terms of sources, that's always the concern. So we do not have a printed study material for this portion. Vision IAS doesn't provide you in that set, but what I personally like to recommend is that we can go through the NCERTs, even for those people who have specializations in biology. Still, I think one basic reading of foundational books is very helpful, क्योंकि हम ज़्यादा advanced चीज़ें पढ़ने के चक्कर में sometimes the basics we miss out. So 6th to 8th NCERT science. And to specify, this is the new version, the latest one, 2019 reprint is there. So that I'm talking about. If you read that, that will suffice. 6 to 8, I would like to say, in my recommendation, is mandatory for everybody. Despite whatever is your background, this you all must read, right? You might not need to read it again. You might just add whatever you get here to your notes or however you are comfortable. But these are simple books, basic books. You will be able to understand, and there should as such be no problem here. Then we have 9th, 10th science, and then 11th, 12th biology books. Now all these books, I mean, you can buy them also, or they are also available on the website of NCERT. You can just go and download there. They have the option of downloading it chapter wise also. So you can do that. So this is like mandatory. These are subjective. Voluntarily you can read. 9th and 10th mein, you can go through the topics which we have covered. If you think you need to read through some text, you can do that. 11th and 12th books, the biology books, they are only for your reference. Please don't try to read them cover to cover. You will not understand them. Okay, they have been written for a very different purpose. They have been written for people who are going to sit in a pre-medical entrance test, not for UPSC. The information here is way too much. It is very highly technical. So we do not need this. But yes, when we are reading a particular topic, like we are going to study about animal cloning in the class, and you want to go look that up again, so for that part you can go and refer to this, but otherwise this is not like something which you have to like definitely read, right? I would also be telling you specific chapters from this portion at the end of each class. So whichever chapters I would be linked to the topic which we study in the class, I will be telling you those chapters in the end of the class. Ki acha, today's class from class 8th NCERT, read chapter number 5, right? I will tell you. So if you find that to be a comfortable way of doing it, so you can read it as we go through the classes. Like after today's class, I will be telling you one very small chapter. So if you can read it there, then in smaller bits that portion will be completed. But if you've already read the NCERTs, then of course that problem is solved. Or if you want to start on your own, then maybe you can start with the 6th standard NCERT. 6th to 8th you must read. This you can choose and select. Other than this, I personally do not recommend going into any other material, because the time which you will put on it, it's not going to turn into marks. It's 3 questions, 4 questions, out of that also something weird they will always ask, like last time they asked if some pig cells could be put into human beings, something like that. So what happens with content is that, okay, maybe you read about pigs in that book, in that document, but next year they will ask horse. So again, not a lot of benefit. And anybody who has to print a book, their problem is that they cannot print a book in less than 300 pages. So that's a challenge, that's a publisher's dilemma which is there. So maybe the content which you need to read is like 75 pages, 50 pages, but because somebody has to print a book, so it will be at least 300 pages. So that can add to your load. If you feel there are some topics you are struggling with, you can definitely go and look up other sources, but otherwise, as of now, it is not needed. Your strategy should be simple. The classes are already curated, limited, minimized, so there is nothing here which you can omit, right? Even if I use words like platyhelminthes and eschelminthes, you have to learn them. That's the only purpose of giving you them, those terms in the class. Classes, and major focus should be on current affairs. That's the approach. Of course, you can go through previous year's questions along with that, and that will suffice. Unless and until you are getting stuck in the topic, don't expand your sources beyond that. It will not actually amount to a lot of help when it comes to the exam. Okay? So this is about the subject. If you have anything to ask, you can ask, or we can start with our topic. So we're going to start with a very simple topic, which is food and nutrition, something which is not very biology-like and something which you can easily associate with. So the first idea here is the term nutrient. So you have heard this term, nutrient or nutrients. Now, what does this mean exactly? What do you think a nutrient means? Any idea? People online can also reply. Yes. Okay. It could be a source of energy, right? and not just a source of energy, but anything else which the body needs to do, like your growth, development of different parts of the body, anywhere there is an injury, so repair has to be done. All of that is going to come from the nutrients. So this is a part of your food which is going to help you in all the life functions. Okay, so we can just write this down in one line, please. Nutrients are found in our food. Nutrients are found in our food. They are essential to life and health of an individual. Essential for life and health of an individual, providing him with energy, and acting as building blocks for repair and growth. Now we are going to categorize the nutrients based on in what quantity we need them. How much of a nutrient we are going to need, based on that we will divide it into two categories. We have the macronutrient. Macro would mean larger, those things which we need in a larger amount, in a greater amount, like proteins, carbohydrates and fats. And then micronutrients, those which are needed in a smaller amount, like vitamins and minerals. Now focus on this point, that this is not a differentiation of significance, of importance. They are both important. Okay, they are both important. They are both going to be doing their respective jobs. They are not replaceable. ऐसा नहीं है कि you take more macronutrients, less micronutrients, there is going to be a compensation. That's not how it works. Both of them have their different roles to play, but it is just the quantity which is variable. You need more of these. So the major part of your food or your diet will come from macronutrients. The lesser part will come from micronutrients. Okay. Write down macronutrients. Macronutrients. They form the larger part of our diet. They form the larger part of our diet, and are needed in greater amounts, and are needed in greater amounts. And then you have to write down proteins, carbohydrates and fats. Proteins, carbohydrates and fats. Then micronutrients. Micronutrients. They form the lesser part of our diet. They form the lesser part of our diet and are needed in smaller amounts. And are needed in smaller amounts. Then you have to write down vitamins and minerals. Under this, vitamins and minerals. So now we are going to discuss one by one all these 5 nutrients. Starting with carbohydrates. So you can see some of the sources of carbohydrates here. Of course you know about carbohydrates also. So you have some grains, then you have some fruits and vegetables, some pasta also made from grains. Chemically, if we talk about carbohydrates, it is carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. A carbohydrate is made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. And the main purpose which it has is to provide energy. Carbohydrates are the energy giving nutrient for the body. So when the body has to produce energy, the first thing which it will look for is carbohydrates. That is what is going to become the source of energy. And we are going to be using a word called organic. Of course, we will not go into the technicalities of this. For the purpose of our understanding, anything which is a carbon compound, we are going to consider that to be organic here. Okay, so they are organic compounds which will be giving us energy. So we'll write this in one line, please. Carbohydrates are naturally occurring organic compounds containing carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, and acting as sources of energy. Now what we are going to do is, we are going to understand the different types of carbohydrates. So if we look into the structure of carbohydrates, they are basically in the form of cyclic compounds. Closed structures like this. It could be any shape. The shape will depend on the number of carbon atoms which are there. So such shapes are there. This would be like one unit of carbohydrate. Many of these units can join to form long chains of carbohydrates also. Like we can have a similar shape, another one, then another one, like that. There could be a chain of hundreds of such units. The only thing we need to know is that the basic unit is a cyclic structure. Okay. So carbohydrates, with this logic, they are of three types. The first one is called monosaccharide. Monosaccharide, the word mono should tell you that it is one single unit, and saccharides is, you can say, a kind of a technical name for carbohydrates. So monosaccharide contains one single unit. So if we were to look at it here, so if we do not have this bond, then this would be one single unit, which we can call the monosaccharide. When these join, there is a bond which is formed. It is called glycosidic bond. Both of these individually we can call them monosaccharides when they have not joined. But if they join, there is a bond which is formed. It is called the glycosidic bond. And the joined carbohydrates are called oligosaccharides. Oligosaccharides will have 2 to 10 units. When these here we have shown 2 units joining through a glycosidic bond, this could be further more than 2 also. So till the time we have 10 units, we are going to call this an oligosaccharide. Every time one unit joins to another unit, the bond which is there, it is the glycosidic bond. And this was a UPSC question also once, where they had just simply asked what is the bond in carbohydrates. So the name of the bond is glycosidic bond. Next one is called the polysaccharide. So you can very well understand from this correlation that this would be more than 10 units. So a single unit, monosaccharide, 2 to 10 units, we say it is oligosaccharide, and then more than 10 units is a polysaccharide. Okay. The examples in each of these cases are important. So we have different combinations which give us different carbohydrates. When the body has to use them, ultimately the body will break down all the glycosidic bonds, change them into monosaccharides, whichever form is there, that would be changed into monosaccharide, and then the body will use them. That is the process of digestion which happens. So let's start writing about these and we will do the examples. The examples here in each of these cases, that is very important. Okay, so first write down monosaccharides. They are the simplest forms. They are the simplest forms of carbohydrates. They are the simplest forms of carbohydrates that cannot be broken down into simpler form. Examples now. The first and the most common example is glucose. So I'm sure everybody has heard about glucose. With glucose you can write down it is the main source of energy. Glucose is the main source of energy. So all organisms, plants, animals, bacteria, everybody they will go to glucose for their energy needs. This is what the cells of the body will use. This is the form in which it will ultimately produce energy. Now you might be aware of that glucon-D which is there. So glucon-D, all sports day, all athletic events, why it is given or used is because that is the form of glucose, and that's like the instant form. The body doesn't need to break it down or do anything. It can be instantaneously used. So wherever that instant energy is needed, you can use that glucon-D which is available. Next example is fructose. Fructose or the fruit sugar. Fructose or fruit sugar. Now it was first identified from fruits, that's why we have this name, but otherwise it can be found in other things also, like honey. The honey has many different types of carbohydrates, but most predominantly it contains fructose. And the third one is galactose. Galactose, it is a component of the milk sugar. Galactose is a component of the milk sugar. Then write down about oligosaccharides. Oligosaccharides. Two to 10 monosaccharide units can join together through glycosidic bonds to form oligosaccharides. Sanjana, do we have a problem with the video or the sound? Can you? Okay, see. Okay. So see, if you are facing any kind of buffering or sound or any such issue, and if you want us to actually recognize and address that, please select the technical option from your doubts section and let them know. So that's how the technical team will be able to help you out, right? If you keep writing here, first of all, you're not supposed to write it here in the response section, right? Because then you are just giving strange ideas to each other and actually not solving your problem. So mention it to the technical team. They are the only ones who can help you out with it. Oligosaccharides examples. First one is sucrose. So sucrose is our common table sugar. The sugar which we normally consume, that sugar is an oligosaccharide called sucrose. It is made up of glucose and fructose. Sucrose is made up of two things, two monosaccharides joined together. Glucose and fructose together form sucrose, which is our common table sugar. Then we have lactose. I'm sure everybody has heard about lactose. Lactose is the milk sugar, the sugar found in milk. So we have glucose plus galactose. Glucose plus galactose. So glucose and galactose, they are both monosaccharides, and when they join, they give an oligosaccharide called lactose, which is found in milk, the milk sugar. So when we wrote about galactose, this is what we wrote. It is a component of the milk sugar. Milk sugar is actually not just galactose, but a combination of galactose and glucose together. And the third one is maltose. This is now 2 units of glucose. Glucose plus another glucose, that is what gives us maltose. So maltose is available in the form of all the malt based syrups. So the syrups which we will get from corn, from barley, from like we have something called maple syrup. So if you have tried pancakes, you would know that there is this sticky, thick liquid, sweet liquid, which you get with that. And if you have not, then yes, that's one thing you can do. Maybe add that to your to-do list to go and eat pancakes and try maple syrup. Maple syrup is maltose. Any cereal-based syrups which are there, corn, barley, rye, anything like that, they would be primarily be composed of maltose. That is an oligosaccharide with 2 units of glucose. Okay. Coming now to the polysaccharides. Both of these monosaccharides and oligosaccharides, they are basically the sugar or the food component, energy component, such things are there. When we come to polysaccharides, here the structure becomes complicated. We can have any number of units and they can be arranged in any kind of chains, there could be branches, any such complexity could be there. So when the body has to process polysaccharides, it is a little difficult because you can understand we have glycosidic bonds. This is what the body is breaking to digest the food. So if there are no bonds, most easier for the body. If there are a few bonds, okay, it will still do it. Both of these are called the simple carbohydrates. Okay, we use the word simple because less number of bonds are supposed to be broken here. For polysaccharides, these are larger structures, more complex, and because of this they are difficult to break and process in the body. So they become complex carbohydrates. They make structures of different parts of the body, right? And we will see which are your polysaccharides. First, let's just write in one line. Polysaccharides form the structural material and are made up of more than 10 units of monosaccharides, more than 10 units of monosaccharides joined together by glycosidic bonds. Joined together by glycosidic bonds. Let's see the examples. So you might have heard about starch, and then we have glycogen and cellulose. These are the 3 examples of polysaccharides. The common point here is that the monosaccharide unit which makes up these 3 is glucose. In each of these cases, we have glucose as their basic component. Now, number of glucose and the way glucose is arranged, that can be different, and they are all going to be doing different functions. But if we have to talk about the constituent, all 3 of these are made up of glucose. Okay. Now, what do they do? First, cellulose. Cellulose cellulose makes up the cell wall in plants. So we will talk about what exactly a cell wall is in the next class. But here you can just mention with cellulose, it makes the cell wall in plants. So this should also tell you that cellulose is a polysaccharide which is found only in plants, nowhere else. It is found only in plants. As far as the other two are concerned, they are used for storage. So we said glucose is something which the body uses for energy. For energy production, we have, for creating energy in the body, we will have to use glucose. So this glucose, when it is extra, the body will have a way to store it. Okay, we'll have to store the glucose. Why? Because maybe at a later point of time, this glucose is not available. At that time, it can use the stored form for energy. So, animals and plants store this glucose differently. Animals store it in the form of glycogen, and plants store this glucose in the form of starch. So this again tells you that glycogen is found only in animals and starch is found only in plants. Okay, so you can write down for starch, it is the storage product. It is the storage product of glucose It is the storage product of glucose in plants. Storage product of glucose in plants. And about glycogen you can write, it is the storage product of glucose. It is the storage product of glucose in animals. So starch and cellulose in plants, glycogen in animals. Now this is all that you need to know. Okay, carbohydrates, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, main thing which they are going to be doing is energy production. Then they are of three types depending on how many units are there: monosaccharides, oligosaccharides, polysaccharides. Monosaccharide 1 unit, oligosaccharide 2 to 10 units. See, out of from here the number of units which are there, based on that we can give them specific names also. Like the common examples of oligosaccharides are disaccharides. We have done all the examples of disaccharides. That means 2 units, 2 things. We can have others also. We can have 3 units also. Right? We can have trisaccharides and like that, so on and so forth till number 10. That is possible. Polysaccharides, more than 10 units. And then the example. Okay. This is all which you need to know about carbohydrates. We can now move on to the next of our nutrient, which is proteins. Second of the macronutrients, proteins. So here you can see we have some nuts, we have some eggs, we have fish, cheese. All of these are supposed to be sources of proteins. the distinguishing point for proteins as compared to carbohydrates is that this is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. This nitrogen is the special point here. Proteins in all cases will definitely have nitrogen. That is their basic identity. Sometimes proteins can have sulfur also, some proteins, but this is not a definite condition. Okay, if I ask you a question, which of these are found in all proteins, then you will select these four things: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and not sulfur. But if there is a statement which asks you which can be found in proteins, then can be found में we can always include sulfur also. But carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, that will always in every case be available, will be present in the proteins. Let's talk about the basic unit here now. Like we had monosaccharide units, when it comes to proteins, we have amino acids. The basic unit of a protein is amino acid, and different amino acids can join together and form proteins. The bond formed can be called with two names. One is an amide linkage or a peptide bond. This is the same thing. The bonds between different amino acids with these bonds they join and they form proteins. Because of this term, the peptide bond, proteins or these structures can also be called polypeptides or just peptides. Okay, let's write this down. Proteins are nitrogenous organic compounds. Nitrogenous organic compounds in the bracket you can write down carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen. Which have amino acids joined together by a peptide bond or amide linkage. By a peptide bond or amide linkage. Now let's look into the types of proteins. Now in carbohydrates we had this types based on number. Here we have the types based on their structure, and you can see two distinct shapes here on the screen. We have a globe-like spherical shape, which is the globular protein, and we have another one which is linear in shape, like long fibers. This is the fibrous proteins. So two types of proteins depending on the way these amino acid chains are arranged. Globular, when it is wound in a spherical manner, like a ball, like a globe, and when it is present in the form of chains. Both of these are also supposed to do different functions. The fibrous proteins, they form the different parts of your body, like your skin, your hair, your muscles. All of these are made up of fibrous proteins. You can also imagine the muscles to be like fibers, right? Or your skin or your hair in that sense. So they are supposed to be forming the structures of different parts. Like, we will take some example here. Myosin is the protein which forms the muscles. We have alpha keratin, which forms the hair, not just hair, but hair, nails. Then if we talk about other birds and animals, so the horns are alpha keratin, the claws of birds, they are alpha keratin. And in the skin we have collagen. Just write this down. Fibrous proteins. Fibrous proteins. The amino acid chains, the amino acid chains are found in a linear pattern, and they form the structures of different parts of the body. They form the structure of different parts of the body. And then you write down these examples. Myosin, which makes up your muscles, alpha keratin, hair, and collagen, skin. So see, in cosmetic treatments, external application of these things are also possible. So I don't know about you people, but with me this definitely happens. So when I go for a haircut, they will definitely try and sell me on a keratin treatment. No, you must get keratin. A lot of people get it also. So basically what is keratin is, your hair is made up of keratin. So they can do a chemical application of keratin on your hair. It's basically because that is the protein with which it is made up of. Okay, so that's one way. Collagen fillers are also administered in the skin. It is supposed to be an anti-aging treatment. So with age, as your skin sags, you can give it a little bit of a protein boost by adding collagen under the skin so that it can retain its original form, or maybe just slow down the process of aging. So this kind of an idea is also possible. talking about the next thing, globular proteins. Now, like we said for fibrous, they are forming the structures. Globular proteins, they are going to be functional proteins. So their job is to do different kinds of functions in different places in the body. Okay, what kind of functions that we can see from the examples? Some of these proteins can form hormones. So we have a hormone which you would have heard about, insulin. We will study hormones, so there again the concept will come there, but here just as an example. So the hormone insulin is a protein. What protein? It is a globular protein. Please focus on the word some. When I have mentioned some, that means I want to specify that all hormones are not proteins. Okay, hormones can be fats also or any other thing, but this particular hormone insulin, this is a globular protein. The next example which we can take is blood plasma proteins. So there are some proteins which are found in the blood. When we study blood, at that point of time we will see what are their exact functions, but here we can note them down. They are also globular proteins. Okay. The third one is enzymes. All the enzymes are globular proteins. Now the question is, what exactly is an enzyme? So we studied carbohydrates, and in that we studied a carbohydrate called lactose. Okay. In chemistry or in any reaction taking place anywhere, suppose if A is supposed to break down into B and C. A standard process, any reaction taking place where A is supposed to break down into B and C. For this, we might need a catalyst. So catalyst has nothing to do with the reaction itself. Neither is it A, nor is it B or C. But it is just something which is involved in the reaction and which is going to help the reaction. That is what is a catalyst. In living systems also, we have catalysts. So if lactose comes into your body, what the body will try and do is it will try and break it into its constituents, which is glucose and galactose. This is what lactose is made up of. So when somebody drinks milk, what happens in their body is the body will digest it, break it down into glucose and galactose. This is a normal process. But for this to happen, they will need an enzyme. Enzymes are the catalysts of the biological systems. So they are called biocatalysts. So an enzyme which acts on lactose, it can be, or it is called lactase. For everything which needs an enzyme, there is a specificity. Lactase will act on lactose. It will help in breaking down lactose into glucose and galactose. So you might have heard about people being lactose intolerant, or those people who cannot consume milk or milk products. So what is happening in their body is they do not have a well-functioning lactase enzyme. And this is a very big problem. In some populations like Southeast Asian countries, more than 30% of their population is lactose intolerant. So that is why you will also find that the diets in those, the classical diets which they have, they do not have a lot of dairy products. Why? Because those populations cannot process lactose because of this non-functional or inadequately function lactase enzyme. So without this lactase functioning properly, your body will not be able to use milk, as it is not able to digest it. So then for those people, they have to go for some alternative forms of dairy, like almond milk or soya milk. A few options are available now. Okay, but milk as such, the animal milk, that they cannot process because that contains lactose. You can write in one line about the enzymes. Enzymes are biological catalysts or biocatalysts which help in different reactions taking place in the body. And then make sure you give this example: lactose, lactase enzyme. Lactase enzyme helps to break down lactose into glucose and galactose. Let's write one line about globular proteins also. Globular proteins are amino acid chains. Globular proteins are amino acid chains which are coiled around in spherical shape and perform different functions in the body. Okay, and then of course we have the examples of globular proteins. Next we will talk about lipids or fats, the last of your macronutrient. So lipids is a broader term. When we say lipids, we mainly talk about the fats. So we will be using the word fats here, but other things like waxes in your body, like the ear wax which is there, that would be in this category. Some hormones like your sex hormones, they are found in this group. All these things you can also understand as functions of fats, or what are the things which fats are doing. Then we have vitamins, some vitamins which we'll do, fat soluble. All these things fall in the category or are derived basically from lipids. So other than this, lipids or fats in our body, we do not understand them normally to do anything good, but they are very, very essential. They are supposed to be vital to our function, because that's how we will be able to have these hormones, or we will be able to use the vitamins A, D, E and K. They are also signal molecules for the brain. The interactions which the brain is going to be doing in, sending information to different nerves or different parts of the body, that is happening with the help of these fats. Chemically, if we talk about them, their composition is carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Of course, this is a very basic thing. In terms of structure, obviously, you might think कि यही तीनों चीजें तो carbohydrate में भी थी, but when it comes to the exact structure which is there, that is very different for lipids. The distinguishing physical property which they have is insolubility in water. You can see the sources here. You have some fish, you have nuts, you have oil. And it is most commonly known that oil and water do not mix. That is kind of a test also to see if this is a fat-based product. So, lipids or fats, they have the same organic composition, but they are structurally different, and they are identified by the fact that they are insoluble in water. Okay, write this one line. Lipids or fats contain carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, and are insoluble in water. Insoluble in water. Now let's see a little bit about its structure. See, you people should know this, that there is an option to rewind, right? You can go a few seconds, a few minutes backwards also in the video. So you just end up asking people to dictate and complete the sentences which you've mentioned here. So you have a simpler way of doing that. Go back in the video and then you can continue from there. It will be a little easier for everybody. Okay. The form in which fats are stored in the body, that form is called triglyceride. Fats are stored in the body in the form of triglyceride, and their composition is fixed. They are made up of two things. One is the fatty acid, and the second thing is glycerol. Unlike in carbohydrates and proteins, here the number will be fixed every time. So we will have 3 fatty acids and 1 glycerol. Okay, so 3 fatty acids and 1 glycerol every time. That will be the standard situation where a triglyceride is being formed. No other option is there. The bond formed is ester bond. The name of the bond is here the ester bond. Okay. Let's write this triglyceride. The major form triglyceride, it is the major form in which fats are stored in the body. It is made up of 3 units of fatty acids, 3 units of fatty acids and 1 unit of glycerol. Now we will talk about the types of fats, different types. Now I'm sure you've heard about good fats and bad fats and things like that. We are also going to understand why something is good, why it is bad, and how are we coming to that conclusion. Okay, so you have unsaturated fats in which you have nuts, avocados, and you have saturated fats where you have dairy, meat, coconut oil, and then of course all the things we like, the processed foods, chips, donuts, and there's a cupcake. So that is all trans fats. So let's see how we are categorizing this. The basis of this is in the fatty acid. So we are talking about types of fatty acids. That will ultimately determine what happens to the fats. So types of fatty acids, we have to first talk about the bond structure. In fatty acids, we can have 2 types of arrangements. One is a carbon-carbon single bond. Between the carbon atoms, we can have a single bond or we can have a double bond. So we have 2 types of two types of fatty acids based on this carbon-carbon linkage. First type we are going to call saturated fatty acid, and this is the one with no double bonds. That means only carbon-carbon single bonds are there. The second kind is unsaturated so here you have presence of double bonds. So 2 main categories, right? There's nothing I will be dictating here. Please copy this as such. If there is a double bond present, we call it unsaturated fatty acid. If there is no double bond, we call it saturated. As simple as that. Now examples, of course, will give you a better understanding of this. On a very broad level, what we find is that all animal based fats, everything that we are getting from animals, they are mostly known to be saturated. Now again, mostly, because there would be others also, like coconut oil is a saturated fat, right? So there can be others also, but mostly we see animal fat to be saturated. Also, there is this observation that at room temperature, saturated fats mostly, again mostly, are in a solid form. So the examples which you can write here for saturated are ghee, butter, cheese, and of course coconut oil. Ghee, butter, cheese, coconut oil. Right, so you can see in this that there are they are in a solidified form, all these things, cheese, butter, ghee, even cream. So they are a little solidified in form. That's like mostly what is happening. When we talk about unsaturated, we can further categorize them into two types, depending on how many double bonds are present. Mono unsaturated, poly unsaturated. So mono unsaturated, poly unsaturated. By their names you should get some sense. Mono unsaturated means this fatty acid has one double bond, and polyunsaturated means we have more than one double bond. Just copy this. As an abbreviation, this is called PUFA. You might have heard this term. This is a standardized term. Polyunsaturated fatty acid. Polyunsaturated fatty acid, or PUFA. And then MUFA is monounsaturated fatty acid. So PUFA and MUFA. We'll write examples in both the cases. First, for monounsaturated, olive oil, sesame oil, or til ka tel, if you understand that. Sesame oil, olive oil, then this new superfood, avocado. Now if you don't know what that is, it's a very tasteless fruit which is supposed to be having a very high nutrient value. It is used in the Mediterranean food, a lot of dips and hummus and things like guacamole. Those contain avocado, so you can look it up. It will somewhere be available and maybe try it. Then polyunsaturated fatty acid, your fish, walnuts, Then you have again two of these very famous seeds, flax seeds and chia seeds. So flaxseed is alsi, and chia seed, I have no idea what it is in Hindi. Unsaturated fatty acids may we have more plant sources, and most of these would be liquid. Unlike if we have to like compare it with saturated, where we said mostly solid and animal based. So here that is the things are the other way around. So most of your vegetable oils which we use normally, they are in this unsaturated category only. Mono unsaturated mostly. Now about the third type, which is the trans fat. Now some amount of trans fats are naturally found along with the animal fats. We can have some trans fats also present, like milk contains around 2.5% of trans fat also. But any discussion on trans fats, or when you are reading it or reading about it in the news or anywhere, because this is always in news, so that at that time we are talking about the artificially produced trans fat. Okay, so two questions here now. First, how are we producing this artificially? And the second is, why are we producing it artificially? So first of all, let's see how we are doing it. We'll go into this bond structure. So you have, what we do is we take an unsaturated fatty acid. Like we will supposingly take vegetable oil. Vegetable oil is unsaturated. It has carbon-carbon double bond. Okay, we get this in our industrial setup in our lab, and we remove one bond. We break one bond, and in place of this, what we are going to do is we will add hydrogen. So where there was a double bond, in that place we have now added a hydrogen bond. So we are doing this in the industry, so we will call this as industrial hydrogenation. The process we will call industrial hydrogenation. Now we have taken vegetable oil. Suppose we have taken 100 units of that, whatever is the quantity or whatever. So we do not hydrogenate all of it. So what we normally do is we hydrogenate some percentage, like 20%, 30%, 40%, like that. Some amount of it is kept in the original form, some amount is changed or is hydrogenated. So the term which you will find, if you see, it is mentioned in on a lot of food products also. It is partial hydrogenation. So the process is partial industrial hydrogenation. The vegetable oil which I took and whose double bond I have broken, some of them, it will ultimately change into something which also you have heard about, Vanaspati ghee, or the vegetable based ghee. Now this ghee, if you have done some grocery shopping anytime, and if you've come across this is way cheaper as compared to the animal ghee. That is why when the sweet shops, when they're selling any product, they will mention and advertise it as Shuddh Desi Ghee. What is that desi ghee? Desi ghee is the animal based ghee which is there, and the other ghee which is used many a times is the Vanaspati ghee. So the first advantage of Vanaspati ghee is that it will land cheaper. That is why any sweets which are made from Shuddh Desi ghee or anything which is made in that, it is expensive. Or that's how they advertise and charge more. Ki no, we have used Desi ghee in this. So first advantage was the cost. You're getting it from vegetable oil, it lands cheaper. Second thing is, like if we see in this picture, we have our processed food in this category of trans fats. So processed food like, chips or bakery products or other say namkeen or other things, they are supposed to be preserved. Trans fats have a better property, a longer shelf life. So they are helpful in any products which are supposed to be stored and consumed later on. They do not spoil easily. And they also give a better texture to your food. So the flavor and texture is greatly improved by the use of trans fats. So that is their positive point. That is why we want to produce more trans fats and use them in our food products. And that's how this industrial hydrogenation process started and became very popular. Okay, but there was a problem. And what is the problem? The problem which started coming across is that there are some ill effects associated with trans fats. So in the most generic manner, in the most oversimplified way, I'm going to explain that to you. So this is a blood vessel. Think of this as an artery. So through this, blood is flowing, and blood in the body has the function of carrying everything. Everything from water to salt to food to nutrients, everything is being carried from the blood. That is a fixed thing. So like everything, blood is going to be carrying fats also. Okay, but if these fats are extra, you don't need that much fat, but your blood is always containing fats in a higher amount, then what will happen is, on the sides of this blood vessel, some deposit is going to take place. The fat is going to get deposited. And over the years, this accumulation will increase. It will start piling off at whichever place this has happened, and this will increase. Okay, you might have heard about people talking about blockage in any of their hearts or any organs, right? If today we also go and get ourselves examined, so some percentage of blockage will always be there. It might be 10%, 5%, whatever, but some amount will be there. As more blockage, it becomes more and more, the percentage increases or the vital organs are involved, the more severe your situation becomes. Let's see what will happen. The first thing is, earlier blood had this much area to flow from. Okay, this whole diameter of the blood vessel, this was the area from which blood could flow. But now, because we have deposits, this has reduced. There is a lesser area for blood to flow from. So area is less, but blood is going to be that much only. Blood is not reducing. So the first thing which can happen is a condition of high blood pressure. Right? Less area, same blood. That means the pressure on these walls will increase. So that can be one condition. In further advancements, in further blockages, what can happen is this whole blood vessel can get blocked. Rasta pura band. Okay. Now, depending on where this supply line is taking, we can have different types of symptoms. Suppose this is a major blood vessel which is taking blood to the heart. Now, heart is the most vital organ. It has to continue pumping. So, if this goes on to the heart, now there will be multiple arteries, not just one. But suppose all of them are blocked, or the most crucial one is blocked, then you can have something like a heart attack, where the blood supply to the heart will be stopped and the person will have a heart attack. Suppose this is a blood vessel going to the brain, the vital vessel going to the brain. So in that case, you can have something called a brain stroke. I'm sure you've heard about all these things, right? So brain stroke may be kept, the blood supply to the brain has stopped, probably because of this blockage. Okay. And as of now, we do not have any way to reverse this, to reverse any deposition which has already taken place. So we find alternative ways in which we can do a treatment, like for some cases where it is found out, it is detected, we can form alternate channels. It is called a bypass surgery. कि अच्छा यहाँ से रास्ता बंद है, put another channel. Okay, bypass this route so that blood, instead of going there, will go from here and pass out, leaving the blockage aside. This is one way. अगर इसको earlier stages पे if we can detect it, अभी पूरा बंद नहीं हुआ, then maybe we can put something which is called a stent. So the stent can actually force these deposits and slightly open the path so that blood flow can be maintained. Okay. So of course this all you don't need to go into, but just to give you an idea as to what can happen with these blockages and with the fat deposits. Coming to our types of fats and integrating that with this concept, trans fats have the highest tendency to go and get deposited. In the beginning, I told you that there are a lot of good things in the body, like forming hormones, forming different types of vitamin solubility, and then signal molecules to the brain, all those things. Those are the good functions for which we need fats. But the trans fats as such do not involve themselves in any of those good activities. What they do is they have the highest tendency of going and getting deposited, so they will go and get deposited. That's what makes them the bad fats. And this potential of trans fats having the damaging effect on your heart, on your blood vessels, is the reason why it is now being banned in most countries of the world. The WHO has a resolution to deal with trans fats. It is mandatory everywhere to mention how much trans fat a food item has. More than 100 countries are already talking about phasing it out. India is also one of them. So we have a mission of phasing this out by 2023. That's our first target. So because of this and because of its health impact, this is something which continues to stay in news. And I think broadly we now understand what is the problem. Talking about the other types of fatty acid, so I said trans fats have the highest potential of doing this. Second to this is the saturated fats. Obviously trans fat का potential बहुत ज़्यादा high है as compared to saturated fats. But saturated fat also, when taken in a very large amount, they will have an increased tendency towards being deposited. So that is why it is always suggested that we should not have a lot of cheese, cream and ghee in our diet. Okay, we need to get them in some amount, but excess is bad. That is our basic understanding. And the other two, between the other two, we have MUFA and then PUFA. PUFA being the best of all oils. So any foods which contain PUFA like flax seeds, chia seeds, and seafood, they are the ones which are highly recommended to be made a part of your diet. That is why the seafood based diet in communities like the Japanese population, it's considered to be one of the healthiest diet because of the presence of this polyunsaturated fatty acid here. Okay? We will solve one UPSC question, then we will take a break. The question is on this topic of trans fats only. So just solve this question, see what should be the answer. Okay, let's try and solve one statement at a time. Okay. A company marketing food products advertises that its items do not contain trans fats. So the information which we have is does not contain trans fats. What does this campaign signify to the customers? First statement, and you have to find out which is correct. That's what the question is basically asking you. The first one says, food products are not made out of hydrogenated oils. So we know hydrogenated oils are the trans fats. Trans fats are hydrogenated oil. So if it says no trans fats, that means that no hydrogenated oils. First statement is correct. Now once we know statement number 1 is correct, we will go to our option and remove any option which does not have 1. Okay, that is option B. So out of 4 options, now we are left with only 3 to choose from. Second, the food products are not made out of animal fats or oils. Okay. Now the information which we have here does not contain trans fats, but this in no way tells us what it contains. Okay, so it can have animal fats, it cannot have animal fats, it can have plant fats, we do not know. We cannot establish that by just this piece of information. So this might be correct, but we cannot say this out of the information which is available to us. So 2 should also now not be in our answer. That means one more option is eliminated. We are left with 2 options now and 1 statement. The oils used are not likely to damage the cardiovascular health of the consumer. Cardiac means heart. Vascular means the vessels of the heart, arteries, veins, all those things. That's the term vascular for that. So they have suggested not likely. Okay, because of course there is always a probability thing when it comes to damaging or getting any diseases. Not everybody is going to react the same way. So they have carefully added this to make this statement correct. The oils used are not likely to damage the health of the consumers because we know trans fats, if they were there, they would be damaging. So Third statement is correct. Answer is C, 1 and 3 only. C, 1 and 3 only. See, even if there is a saturated fat which is present, then also it is not something which is definitely bad. Saturated fats in their proper proportions do not have like a definite relationship with the damage. जैसे trans fats के लिए हमें पक्का पता है कि this is going to be damaging. But that's not the case with saturated fats. Saturated fats in some amount are needed and are considered healthy. Okay. We did not get any answers from our online students. Is it activated? Acha, well, I needed to refresh. Okay. Yeah, so the answer which we are mostly getting is C. Good. Why trans fats have more potential to be deposited? That's what Deep has asked. So see, the reason for that is something to do with their structure and chemistry, right? Which we don't need to get into. So next we have one question from Sarth. Please explain the bond of carbon with respect to trans fat as carbon-carbon double bond broken or created new double bond. So the carbon-carbon double bond in trans fats. So if we have to like mention what are trans fats, maybe you can write this one line about trans fats also. Please write down. Trans fats are unsaturated fatty acids. Trans fats are unsaturated fatty acids which can be partially hydrogenated in the industry to change into a solid form. To change into a solid form. Bas. And then of course you have these informations. The idea of these questions is also to give you some extra information, and you are supposed to note that down if you find anything is new here. Like maybe you can write that they are likely to damage the cardiovascular health of the person, trans fats. Okay, in terms of bonds, so Sarth, first there was a double bond, and then after that we have single bonds with addition of hydrogen. So that is what is happening here. Can't we consume something that will allow oil to be soluble in it and the issue of blood pressure is removed? As of now, anything which is prescribed in that sense, where you can use something to dissolve the deposits, it's not just fat deposits. See, ultimately these deposits over a period of time, they become very complicated structures. So we don't have a way to dissolve it, as you have said, Naveen, because it has become an integral part of the wall also. The wall of the blood vessel also in that place is damaged, right? So as of now, it is not there. The only thing which can be done is through exercise and through diet alteration is that further blockage or deposition you can avoid. That's the only thing as of now. Tomorrow if you go and invent something which does that, so then we'll have to see, but as of now, no. Okay. Let's take a break. All right, so let's start with some of your questions first. Aditya has asked that cod liver oil is categorized under animal fat oil. Why is it considered healthy? Actually, cod liver oil will be categorized in the category of PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acid. Just like the fish and fish oil, that's where cod liver oil kind of figures out in terms of its fat amount, but along with that, it has a very good amount of vitamin A. Because of that also it is considered to be very healthy. So Shrishant has asked that as fats, trans fats are hydrogenated vegetable oils, so how can we eliminate the second option? Food products are not made out of animal fats or oils. Okay, so if you are saying that trans fats are hydrogenated vegetable oils, through that I'll take your logic, and that means that this does not contain hydrogenated vegetable oil, right? Because it does not contain trans fats. So even if you have that information, that doesn't immediately rule out the fact that it cannot have animal fats also. The second statement is food products are not made out of animal fat. There is nothing in the question which points us to this. You are mentioning hydrogenated vegetable oil, and this one is mentioning animal fats. So if there are no vegetable oils, that does not mean that it will not have animal fat also. It can have animal fat. That information is not available in the question. So that's why we have to eliminate it. Okay. All right. So now we have to talk about vitamins. Okay. See, anything which you have missed out, like, you know, I see a lot of you asking again and again, ki, what was this, what is this definition? So you don't have to worry about that, because you will be getting a very detailed synopsis also. So if you think there is any point you have missed, there is a summary which is being prepared for you. You will have access to that. You can check in your notes that if you have missed anything, you can always add. You have the video also, you have the summary also, all of those things are available to you. And इतनी मेहनत उस summary को बनाने में जो की जा रही है, that is so that it is helpful for you. And anywhere you have missed anything. Okay. So use everything. You have the resources. Just make sure you are filling out any gaps that are there. And that summary is actually a very good way to revise things also. Like if you have to come sit for the next class, before that if you can just spend 10 minutes reading that summary, it will be a revision for you. It will be a handy revision quickly for you to start off with the next topic. Okay. So let's start with vitamins. Now vitamins are our micronutrients. Okay, so we have completed the macronutrient. We are coming to the micronutrients. And in this we have two categories, water soluble and fat soluble. Now conceptually this understanding is important. We said that anything that dissolves in fat will not dissolve in water. We said water and fat, they are not soluble. Fat is not soluble in water. So with that we have a categorization, water soluble vitamins and fat soluble vitamins. The water soluble vitamins are vitamins B and C. What happens to them in the body is that we have to continuously keep taking them. Okay, we need to continuously keep replenishing our body with these vitamins. Now, about vitamins, one thing you need to know is that our body does not produce all of them. Okay, most of them are not being produced, so that means we have to take them from our diet. Plants can produce a lot of these vitamins, so they are a good source in that sense, but our body cannot produce. Water soluble will be dissolved in water, and that will lead to a situation where they will be easily lost from the body, because the passage of everything in the body, right from blood to urine, everything is water based. So whatever can dissolve in water can easily be removed. Okay, so if I take excess of vitamin B or vitamin C, that is not a problem. My body very comfortably can remove it. And it will as such continuously keep removing it, so I have to keep adding it also. It stay in the body in that sense, has to be continuously, it has to be restored, the water soluble ones. Fat soluble, the story is slightly different, because these vitamins A, D, E and K, they will go and get deposited anywhere where there is fat in the body. So where all the places where fats are, there we will find these vitamins being deposited. Okay, now because they are deposited there, you don't need to continuously fill up on these. So they will stay there for a longer period. It's not that the body cannot remove it in any circumstances, the body can remove it, but again it is difficult, it is a longer process. So for a longer time period, they stay in our body. All of these, despite being needed in smaller quantities, are very significant. They are essential for managing and maintaining the health of your body, even in the smallest amounts which they are available. Now, how we will be doing it is, we will be talking about some of the vitamins, not all. Okay, when it comes to vitamin B, there is a very extensive list of vitamins. We will not go into all of them. And we will talk about the sources and some aspects of diseases or deficiencies which are associated with these vitamins. Okay, so this is a basic work. For the first three topics, you will not need any additional read up or any inclusion in the macronutrient portion. But this one is more factual. In this, you can add anything which you get from anywhere. Like maybe you're reading an article and there is a description of a new source of vitamin C which has come in. You can take that example, add it here. Or you are reading about some disease which has come because of the deficiency of, say, vitamin E, and there is an article on that, then you can add them. In this section, vitamins and minerals, there is a lot of scope for you to add things, right? Macronutrients, you will feel that, okay, things are more or less comfortably done, but this is factual. So we will take an overview of the basic aspects. I'll make you write some things, but yes, you obviously have the scope of adding into this. Okay? Let's start with writing one line about the vitamins, then we will start with water soluble vitamins. They are micronutrients. They are micronutrients needed by the body in smaller quantities for the proper functioning of an organism. Most of the vitamins cannot be produced in our body most of these vitamins cannot be produced in the body, and have to be taken as a part of our diet. Have to be taken as a part of our diet. Let's start writing about water soluble vitamins. The first one we will say is B1. The first vitamin here, B1, it is called thiamine. The technical name is thiamine. Sources of vitamin B1: milk, yeast, peanuts, milk, yeast, peanuts, it is needed for carbohydrate metabolism in the body. It is needed for carbohydrate metabolism in the body. Now what does this mean? We've studied about carbohydrates. The word metabolism, we will come across this word at many places. It just means processing in the most layman term. So that means right from the time you take food, from that carbohydrate is broken down, then it is utilized at whichever place it is supposed to be utilized, and finally after being utilized, whatever was waste, that would be removed from the body. That whole cycle of a particular nutrient, that would be the metabolism. So for carbohydrate metabolism, B1 is helpful. Its deficiency, write down please, its deficiency can cause indigestion, conditions like heart enlargement, and even heart failure. So of course the mechanism of how this is happening, that you don't need to worry about, but just have a faint idea about the significance of this vitamin. There is one deficiency disease also, whose name we can know. Deficiency disease is of B1 is called beriberi. And in this we have retarded development. People suffering from beriberi, they have a retarded development. That means a slow growth or improper growth. Then the next one, B2, called riboflavin. Vitamin B2 called riboflavin. Sources: green vegetables, yeast, milk, again same as in B1, yeast and milk. It is needed for it is needed for cellular respiration. It is needed for cellular respiration. Cellular respiration we will study. Here you should just know that this is a process in which cells produce energy. The process of energy production in the cells, that is called cellular respiration. And we will study how that works. There is a deficiency disease here. Its deficiency causes cheilosis. Its deficiency causes cheilosis, which is development of cracks at the corner of the mouth. Development of cracks at the corner of mouth. So the mouth and lip area, that is mainly affected in cheilosis. Associated with vitamin B2. Then B3, niacin, vitamin B3, niacin. Sources are cereal, eggs, meat, cereal, eggs, meat, its deficiency causes a disease called pellagra. Pellagra. It's also called the 4D disease. Pellagra or the 4D disease. So the 4Ds here are diarrhea, dermatitis. Dermatitis is a skin disease, a skin condition. Then dementia, which has something to do with an abnormality in your memory, loss of memory, or that kind of a situation. And of course, then final destination, death. Then we have vitamin B12. Cyanocobalamin. This is the name, and yes, you have to learn the name. Cyanocobalamin. This is one vitamin which is produced by the bacteria of your intestine. Okay, so in the normal process, B12 will be produced in the body, and if that's not the case, then it is mostly going to come from non-vegetarian diet. Okay, that is why currently we are facing this problem of a lot of people having B12 deficiency, particularly those who are completely dependent on vegetarian diets. Because then the only way to get this is through supplements. Okay, write down sources mein. It is produced by the bacteria present in our intestines. It is produced by the bacteria present in our intestines, and other sources can be meat, fish, eggs, now what does it do? Its role is very, very important in the body. You might have heard about hemoglobin. So in your body you have red blood cells, and these red blood cells contain hemoglobin. Now this hemoglobin is a very vital indicator. Anytime this hemoglobin, its level falls, we have a condition called anemia. I am sure everybody has heard about anemia. So anemia is the term which we use for reduced amount or less amount of hemoglobin. Okay, this B12, this is helpful in production of hemoglobin. Okay, so if we have less of B12, that means we will have less of hemoglobin and anemia as a result. Okay, so write this. B12 is needed for production of hemoglobin, found in the red blood cells, Its deficiency causes pernicious anemia. Now anemia is the generalized term for whenever hemoglobin is less, and that can happen for many different reasons. Less hemoglobin in the body. If the reason for less hemoglobin is B12, that has a specific name called pernicious anemia. Okay, pernicious anemia, deficiency of cyanocobalamin. Then the last one here, in water soluble, vitamin C, ascorbic acid, Now this kind of got a lot of recognition with the whole pandemic situation and people talking about ways to boost immunity. So in that sense, I think we do know a little bit about vitamin C and its sources. The main sources are the citrus fruits. So orange, quinoa, malta and all their other relatives, they come in this category, citrus fruits. And of course you can have other sources like amla or Indian gooseberry as it is called, or green chilies. This vitamin C is very important for maintaining the immune system. We will study the immune system also, but here just write this down. Vitamin C is needed for maintaining the immunity of the body. It is needed for maintaining the immunity of the body. Now about its deficiency disease, there is a very interesting story with it. So I'm not sure if you have made this observation, but the next time you see it, I think you should observe, whenever there are any pirate movies or any old movies with sailors, so they are shown to have very bad teeth. Something black is there or crooked or sometimes bleeding also. That is like an image which has been cast for this. So why and what is the story there? There is a disease called the sailor's disease. Okay, the sailor's disease, whose technical name is scurvy. How it was identified was that when people were going on long voyages, okay, like traveling from one continent to the other, it would take months, sometimes years also. So the main food which they were carrying would be bread and meat. So that means carbohydrates, fats and proteins. That's all that they had. There was no way for them to get any vitamins or minerals. So the observation which was made was that they had bleeding gums. And that bleeding gums which was seen in sailors, that led to the discovery of this vitamin, vitamin C. Vitamin C deficiency causes scurvy, which is characterized by bleeding gums. Okay, then it was established that very simply by adding some fruits and vegetables into the diet of those sailors, this problem could be simply solved. Okay, so scurvy is the deficiency disease in which there is bleeding gums. This is like the identifying symptom. Other than that, we also see pain in muscles and joints. Pain in muscles and joints. Okay, this brings us to the end of water soluble vitamins. We'll go to the fat soluble ones. Of course, this is not a complete list. This is not a comprehensive list. So if you want to add more vitamins to it, so we have 5, 6 you can add if you want, but this base is also sufficient. We'll go to the fat soluble vitamins now. Starting with vitamin A, which is called retinol. Vitamin A, retinol. Sources: cod liver oil, as already mentioned by somebody, or fish oil, then carrots, so the function of vitamin A is mainly around the skin and eyes. These are the two places. So once it is less in the body, the impact will mainly be seen. Of course, there can be other things also which are happening, but most of the impact we will see on the eyes and the skin. So you can write this. It is needed for maintaining the eyes and the skin. It is needed for maintaining the eyes and the skin. And one disease also we can write, night blindness. Night blindness, which is the inability of a person to see at night. Then we have vitamin D, calciferol, vitamin D or calciferol. So vitamin D is naturally produced by our skin on being exposed to sunlight. Okay, and that is why it is deficient in everybody, because no exposure to sunlight. The strange thing is that there was a survey which was done in many parts of the country, and there are some places where you feel that okay, urbanization is maybe less and people might have a little bit more exposure to sunlight, but even in a state like Jharkhand, we had data where 89% of the population was deficit in vitamin D. So that's kind of the state of affairs which are there. Write down the sources, then we'll see what it does. The source is exposure of the skin to sunlight, exposure of the skin to sunlight leads to production of vitamin D. Now what is this supposed to do is, its function is related, as you can see in its name also, to calcium absorption in the body. Okay. Yeah, now calcium, out of the many places, one very important place where calcium is supposed to be is in your bones. So this we know. The strength of your bones is dependent on the amount of calcium which is there. Now for that calcium from the body to go and get absorbed in the bones, you need vitamin D. If vitamin D is not there, it will not happen. So this is a challenge or complexity of the situation, that you might have as much calcium or maybe a lot of extra calcium in your body, but you have no vitamin D. What the body will do is, the body thinks that absorb to karna nahi hai, it doesn't need to go to the bones, so that will be removed. Okay, it will be removed from the body because it is not being absorbed. Anything which is supposed to be removed, it has to be removed through the urine. That's our excretory passage. Right? So if we want this calcium to be used, to be absorbed in the body, we need presence of vitamin D. Okay. One disease which we can mention here is rickets. This is something which happens in children in the early years where their bones are growing and they need this calcium deposition to take place. If at that stage vitamin D is deficient, then what happens is the bones are not formed properly. So use your imagination, this is supposed to be the legs. Okay, the legs which are supposed to be straight, because they do not have adequate calcium because of lack of vitamin D, when the baby or when that child starts growing and starts walking, because of his weight, the bones can become deformed. We call this the bow legs or bow shaped legs. So this can be an impact of the vitamin D deficiency. Just write down, vitamin D is needed. Vitamin D is needed for absorption of calcium in the body. And then you can write down the disease, rickets in children. Rickets in children. Deficiency disease of vitamin D. Next we have vitamin E. tocopherol, vitamin E, tocopherol. Sources, vegetable oils. Vegetable oils like sunflower oil or anything else. Its deficiency can cause muscle weakness, and reduced fertility in males. Okay. The last one, vitamin K. Phylloquinone, vitamin K, phylloquinone. Sources, green leafy vegetables. Sources, green leafy vegetables. Now this is important for helping in clotting of blood. Vitamin K helps in the clotting of blood. So when any blood vessel is injured, you have blood being lost from the body. So body needs a protective mechanism to stop this blood loss. So what it does is a clot is formed. A blood clot is formed which will then prevent the loss of blood. For this clot to form, we need vitamin K. If its deficiency is there, that means it will take a longer time for the clot to form. So longer time for clot to form means that more blood in that time period would be lost. So write down, a deficiency of vitamin K, leads to increased clotting time. A deficiency of vitamin K leads to increased clotting time. Okay. Now we'll solve one UPSC question and we'll do minerals in the next class. See, any queries which you people have, you're supposed to ask them in the doubts section. The amount of chatting you are doing here in the response portal, it's not possible for me to read every comment and address your queries. So the way for you to get answers to your queries is to ask them at the right place. So please make sure you are doing that so that we can help you properly. Yes. See? So we have answers as A also. This question has been shown to you to make you understand three things basically. First thing is that the question here says which one of the following statements is not correct. Even on the final day of the exam, people do this mistake, missing out of the not, because in most questions it is the correct statements. You are so used to finding out the correct statement ki not doesn't register. That's why I put it in capitals also here. That you have to here find out the incorrect answer. And you need to consciously register in your mind that this could be asked like this. Second point here is that in a lot of questions, what is going to happen is practice or the final exam, you will not know all the facts. In most questions, I think leaving aside 35 to 40 statements in the actual paper, you will not know everything. It's not possible to know that, but you will know something about all the questions. That's also going to happen. Now with that something, you have to practice how you get to the correct answer and how you make marks, right? So whatever you know, be sure of that. That is why there is so much emphasis on revising stuff. ताकि जो आता है वो अच्छे से आता हो. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि whatever you've read, उसमें be confused on what you have not read. That obviously there is no point. So usually what UPSC does is it gives you a mixture of statements and it wants you to go to the wrong answer. So that is why the more difficult, the tricky statements are the incorrect answers. Like in this question. Okay. Let's read the statements. Any statements which are new to you in every question, you are supposed to write them down. Okay, that's your job. Milk contains none of the vitamin B's. Okay, so you have already written the sources. Vitamin B is there in milk. Okay, B1, B2, both you have written. Milk in that sense is a complete food. It has everything. It has carbohydrates, it has fats, it has minerals, it has vitamins, protein, everything is there. It's the complete food. That is why in your initial stage of your life, the only food which you are supposed to take is milk. It has water also. So it will meet all your requirements. Complete food. So this statement is absolutely incorrect. And this is the answer. Now the challenge is ki this people forget and then they read the other statements. And all the other statements will, if you've not read about it, will appear like ki nahi, ye to pakka galat hai. Look at the last one. Vitamin B deficiency can lead to heart failure. People will normally, we have a tendency to think vitamin से heart failure नहीं ये तो नहीं हो सकता, right? इसको mark करते हैं, यही गलत लग रहा है. या फिर the next one, symptoms of scurvy. Now I know scurvy is bleeding gums. Everybody knows that. Pain in the joints, ये भी गलत. Vitamin A I know night blindness. They have said dry skin, ये भी गलत होगा. So all these statements have been framed in a way to confuse you. Your job is to hold your composure, take every statement on its merit and have confidence on what you know. So this statement is absolutely wrong. This is the answer, but more than 50% people in the actual exam would pick out a wrong option because they have framed the statements like this. All these three statements are correct. If you don't have them in your notebook, you can add from here. Vitamin A, retinol deficiency, because vitamin A is involved in the skin part, right? So its deficiency can lead to dry and scaly skin. After this, one of the symptoms of scurvy is pain in the joints. Yes, pain in the joints, pain in the muscles, that is possible in scurvy. Vitamin B, thiamine deficiency can lead to heart failure. That is also very much possible. Let me tell you some NCERT chapters which you are supposed to go through. Okay, I have a question from Nandini. Do sunscreens prevent penetration of vitamin D from sunlight? A lot of scientific discussion is happening on this topic. So there are two things. One is sunscreen and one is sunblocks. Okay. So sunblocks, they say, are supposed to prevent any kind of UV radiation interaction with the skin. So in that case, there is, in both the cases actually, sunscreen, sunblock, there is definite evidence that it does reduce absorption of vitamin D. Okay. See, there is, you might have heard about this aspect that people say that in the early morning, that's when you should, go outside, because that's when vitamin D will be formed. It's not actually like that. Anytime when there is sun, it will be possible to have vitamin D production in your body. But because the UV radiations are not very harsh, the infrared radiations are not very harsh in the morning, so that's the time when it is advised to do that. So that you don't have a lot of skin damage, at the same time you get vitamin D, right? As far as, yes, this sunscreen concept is there, some amount it will reduce, but we do not say that it can completely stop vitamin D formation in the skin. Okay. Okay, NCERT, there is this very small chapter, Our Food, in your class 6th, chapter 2. So this is something which you can additionally make the effort of reading. And in the next class, we will start with minerals, and then we will be doing cells. We'll talk about cells, how different cells are working. All right. So thank you.